Very well then, of course, you're still watching Rise and Shine daily. And remember, it's a Tuesday actually, just one day from Monday. But let's look at, we've looked at so many things actually, so many issues that have been raised from the presidential elections that held on February 25. And of course, the gubernatorial elections that just finished on Saturday. And a lot of people saying having a lot of reservations concerning these issues. But let's bring it down to Akwa Ibom State. A new era has been birthed. We have a governor-elect in the person of Pastor Umo Eno. Now we'll be looking at him as an individual and as he takes the mantle of leadership as a successor to Governor Udom Emmanuel. What are the expectations from this particular new era, and what should the people of Akwa Ibom State be holding Pastor Umo accountable for? Even though accountability is a serious problem when we talk about governance in this part of the world. But joining us this morning to talk about these and more is Barrister Clifford Thomas, who is the coordinator of Akwa Ibom State Human Rights Community. He's also a barrister and a journalist, and according to him, a lover of all things good, and even a lover of happy times, I would say. Good morning, Barrister, and many thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Janice. Good morning, viewers out there. It's a nice thing to sit with Janice and co.
Uyai.
And Uyai on a program like this, on a day like this when we're still expecting and hoping to fall in love with good things, including them and the program they have. So please just fasten your seatbelt and let's see how it goes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Thank you. That's such a warm opening.
Yeah, it was very warm.
As we are still looking forward to fall in love with good things.
Yeah.
Good things they are. Good things are the expectations that we have as a people in our state. Having just seen the INEC, announce Pastor Moino as the governor-elect of Akwa Ibom State, having won over his other contenders for that particular seat. Will we say that we are expecting joyous times in Akwa Ibom? Of course, especially because the governor-elect himself had just a week before the election promised that the state is going to be submerged into happy hours on Fridays between the hours of 5 and 6 p.m. Overall, this announcement of Pastor Umoino as the governor-elect of Akwa Ibom State, what are your your prospections for over this win, rather?
Well, Pastor Umoino is an individual, and he's been into business virtually all his life, aside from the time he spent with the Nigerian police. So we can say he has experience in public service and in the private sector. He's done well. He's done well in business. But until May 29, we can't say we have a governor in Akwa Ibom State.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of shakings, there are lots of litigations in court here and there. But we hope for the best, that we should be able to have everything settling down. We don't need distraction in governance. Whoever becomes governor of the state needs all the concentration, all the attention, and he needs to concentrate. But the catchphrase, happy hour, that Pastor Moino introduced barely some days to elections, actually helped him. Even though the concept itself is good, but I disagree with the strategy, because if you look at it, from what I heard him say, about 75% of the booze, of the beer will be subsidized. So we need to define what happy hour means. It's a fine concept that changed the game. It's a fine concept that should give people hope. But beyond that moment, 1 hour of happiness subsidized by the state government, which of course I don't believe will exist.
Exactly.
I don't believe that will. Governance is a very serious business. And it's not a business where you bring people and say, okay, let us drink, let us be happy, let's be merry. We need moments of happiness from hard work. Akwa Ibom had become too serious. All the governorship candidates became too serious. The electorate became too serious. Even those who would not vote became too serious. So we needed that moment of happiness, that comic relief. And Pastor Moino introduced the comic relief and made a lot of people happy, and they let off steam. So we don't need to be too serious with everything we do. We don't need to be too serious with life. It's a lesson. It's a lesson in governance that you must make the people understand that there are times they must be happy.
Okay, now let's even look at how Akwa Ibomites are perceiving this win. I think that's more like where we should have started this conversation from. How do you think Akwa Ibomites are perceiving this win? Now, I also know that, you know, the other two political parties, NNP, no, not NNPP now, the YPP, yes, and APC are also going to be filing litigations against this particular win. But what is your perception of the win?
It is actually their right. They are within the purview of exercising their constitutional right to challenge the results. And in challenging the results, they are not saying there mustn't be governance in the state. They are rather challenging the process to say, INEC may not have done what it was supposed to do. And by virtue of this, we were shortchanged. So they have their reasons for going to court. I'm not a member of any of their litigations team. So whatever reason they have, and they want to go to the tribunal, I'm very sure they would gather credible evidence to be able to upturn or upstage, as it were, the product of INEC. Because Pastor Moino is now the product of INEC. By announcing Pastor Moino, you have validated the fact that Akwa Ibom people came out to vote, and they voted Pastor Moino as their choice. And if that is the verdict you have given, it will be tested in court. And once it's tested and proven that Pastor Moino is actually the governor of the state, then so shall it be. And once he is sworn, I think the Electoral Act is very different from previous Electoral Act 2022. It's different from previous Electoral Act. And this one particularly says that all litigations bearing on the elections must end before swearing in. So after swearing in, you may not have the powers to start doing anything. So right now, the flurry of activities in challenging the election results must commence almost immediately. I think it's 7 days or so. Almost immediately before May 29. So if you struggle to get to stage the result and have a different result, and it exceeds May 29, you may not have recourse to that again. So we are evolving. All the mistakes we would have made under the military, we would have made since 1960. The military intervention or incursion into politics, which is an aberration, actually scuttled the opportunity for us to experiment, make mistakes, and correct those mistakes. So the mistakes we would have made since in the 70s is a mistake we're making in 2022.
And you think those mistakes can ever be corrected with all of the things we are facing?
If the Electoral Act, as it is right now, became possible, and the Constitution of Nigeria, some days ago, Mr. President signed some bills into law towards the amendment of the Constitution. Right now, state governments have powers to generate, to transmit, and to distribute power. So if that is possible, which to me is some form of restructuring, if that is possible, then our political evolution as a culture will be possible.
So, but speaking about the Electoral Act of 2022, which was meant to be a very big guideline to how this election was conducted, let's not even forget that the Electoral Act was widely celebrated as a massive move in, you know, the polity and democracy of our country. But we've seen that to a very large extent, on many grounds, INEC did not quite keep to the guidelines that we find daring in the Electoral Act. What does this mean for the just concluded cycle of elections?
It's an eternal shame on INEC to circumvent and abuse, as it were, the structure that everybody applauded and celebrated. We had a guideline, we had a structure that was to help us with the election and for us to come out with a credible, acceptable election. The elections may be credible, but it's not acceptable. It may be transparent, but it's not credible. So a transparent, credible, and acceptable election is what we would have had if INEC had stuck to the guidelines. Now, Atiku Abubakar came out and did ethnic campaign, ethnic purging, what was close to inciting people to pogrom and a Holocaust. The INEC never took Atiku to court. There was no sanction on him. When he said, don't vote the Yorubas, don't vote the Igbos, vote only your brother, the Hausas. That was a terrible aberration of the Electoral Act. And they saw this infringement and infraction on the Electoral Act, and they never took steps to correct it. Why should we believe them?
So even add the one in Lagos that MC Oluomo did by saying if you're not
MC Oluomo should be standing trial right now. But when these big names who are celebrated talks of the mighty, of the almighty and powerful, they commit infractions, you don't start punishing them. You want to punish the young man in Uyo who carried gun to go and shoot in a polling unit and made some old women to fracture their bones and cause pandemonium and mayhem where this shouldn't be. That's the man you want to arrest? No. If you cannot arrest the high and mighty who started this infraction, then you don't have the moral high ground to stand and say you're arresting any other lesser person. What is vote buying? Vote buying, according to the Electoral Act, begins from the day that the date of the election is announced, not at the spot of elections. Every act which includes giving rights, giving wrappers, giving monies, or celebrating people who have not been celebrated for the past 8 years amounts to vote buying. And you should have brought these people to book.
What about handshakes at the entrance of church doors?
Oh, that's a customary thing that pastors do.
But we saw Sanwo-Olu do it, so that's why I actually brought it in.
If a candidate chooses to stand by the door to shake people, it's a social act, it's a social function.
So that's not part of vote buying. That was just an enlightenment, though.
It's just this emergency like of the people. People you have never liked.
I like the word emergency like.
It's
all of a sudden.
Act.
Yeah.
It's an emergency act that is steeped in hypocrisy and dishonesty. So it's an emergency act, and they shouldn't be taken seriously.
So let's come back to vote buying. You were saying something very important here.
Yes.
So giving rappers, giving salt
Amounts
and
to
Maggies
vote
amounts to vote buying.
Before
so why is
the
INEC?
date of the election is announced, it's a social function. After the election, the date of the election is announced, it amounts to vote buying.
Okay, you talked about INEC circumventing. Now, we've also seen a situation, I think that skipped my thought a little bit, but let's come back to Moino. I think I'll come round it and ask that question. Let's come back to Moino now. A good thing. He's a good businessman, according to what you have said and described of him.
If he wasn't a good businessman, he wouldn't have multiplied. He is better than a man that declared 150,000 cows in 1990s. What was that election year? 97? No, 2000. Is it
2007?
2003.
Okay.
2007. 2015. 2019. The statistics has been very static.
And then he still has the 2,000 cows and just one house. Okay, 150 cows.
None of them has died. None of them has given birth. I bet Pastor Moino is better.
And just one house in Daura. Okay.
He doesn't have a house in Kaduna. He doesn't have a house in Abuja. Okay, let's leave
just one house in Daura.
That's a lot of questions right there.
But let's talk about Pastor Moino. The snag, according to a lot of people, is that he's not even had a precedence when it comes to governance.
How do you mean? He doesn't have. He's not been involved in government.
He's not been involved in politics. This is the first time he's having a short.
For you to wake up, your brain wakes up, your eyes are a bit sleepy, and your body is saying, I'm not going anywhere. It's governance. So we are all involved in governance every day. We first govern ourselves. Governance is beyond being in government. And I tell you the truth, those who have not had direct raw experience in government before, they make better governors. They make better governors because they come with the principle of, I've been in the private sector, I have tried my best, And whoever has never employed anybody in a private business and understands what being sick means. Because I am an employer of labor. I employ people. If my staff is sick, I am sick. I must do everything to restore my staff to normal health, standard health, so that as he's happy working, I am happy getting my result. Every businessman thrives on profit and loss, and he wants to maximize profit than loss. But the man in governance who has been in government is lazy. He's giving fuel money, he's giving a house to sustain his harem of girlfriends and mistresses. They give him fuel, they give him a car, government gives you virtually everything. You become lazy. But the businessman comes from the private sector to begin to look at things dispassionately. If I put this amount of money, this is what I want to get as a result. He comes and tells you what's my objective. And by the time he begins to look at his objective, he also looks at strategy. What's the best strategy I can deploy to get the best result, the optimum result? I don't look at maximum, I look at optimum. What is essentially good and the best for us with this XYZ amount of resources deployed? But the man in government, hey, maybe you've been secretary to government, maybe you've been commissioner, you are lazy. I have always said, and I regret to say it because it's going to hurt a lot of people. Aside from the commissioner for information and strategy, we don't have any other proactive person who helped the government. All the other commissioners were just members of the State Executive Council who sat down there and continued business as usual. No dynamism, no proactiveness, nobody sits down to say, okay, in my ministry, I get XY amount of money per year from the budget, and ABC amount of money is released to me. So what can I achieve with this? The various subs within my ministry or agency, how am I going to deploy resources?
Now, do you also think that the government gave them that ample opportunity to express themselves in their different ministries?
I think the government, if the government or the governor, let's not say the government, let's say
the governor.
Did the governor give them ample opportunity to express themselves? I would say yes. If the governor did not give you ample opportunity to express yourself in the direction of the duties and responsibilities of your office, resign and make it known that I was not given the opportunity to do this. Resign. Be honorable, leave the place.
How many politicians will do that?
No, if the kitchen is too hot for you, please
Food
leave
on the table. Food on the table. Why do we die of hunger?
That's why I'm saying that they are lazy. If, for instance, I am commissioner for environment, I will open the space. I will open the space and get to interact with organizations working on the environment. Especially, we don't have snow here, and we don't have mountains here. So I'll work with those who have objectives in the direction of the objective of my ministry. I'll bring them in. I should be able to increase the gross national product, or the amount of money which comes into the state through the ministry. At a point in time, Cross River State, they had 13% of their GDP coming from CSOs, coming from civil society organizations, because the windows of opportunities were open, they were discovered, they were open, they were sustained. And then those opportunities came in forestry, they came in logging, they came in food production, even cassava. Akwa Ibom said, we have what is called cassava competitiveness. We don't. How do we produce or reproduce cassava? Because you have cassava pellet, you have gari, you have fufu, you have tapioca, you have various products of cassava. It's a staple food here. How many? We have 31 local government areas. The land you can use that will sustain cassava. Have we been able to do that mapping?
I think
so a couple of things.
Let's try and come back to perspective.
Because
I'm sorry if I'm Deb, if I'm
no. It's
still on track.
Also broadening because we are heading to expectations.
Exactly.
So you're framing it.
Yeah.
There's an analogy that you brought up that is very important, and I'm going to take you back into the Ibom Emmanuel-led administration just a little bit before we go forward. You're talking about having a businessman and someone who's been in the private sector and not particularly had his hands on governance before. you said there's a propensity for him to do well at governance.
Yes.
So if we look at the fact that his predecessor now, who is Udom Emmanuel, came from that sector, when we look at all he has done in the almost 8 years, would you say that the person that he has heralded to take over from him has a good precedence upon which to walk? So if we say we have seen a businessman and a private sector person take the saddle of governance in our state, can we say he did a good work for us to have that repeat experience?
Let's start with Udom Emmanuel. Udom Emmanuel was not a businessman. Udom Emmanuel merely managed human beings and resources for a bank. And he had rules over him. And those rules may have prevented him from doing what he ordinarily would have done. But for Pastor Moino, he has had the opportunity of having hotels and businesses. He's been a contractor. He's actually been a policeman. So all the good and bad things that police do, he knows them. He understands them very well. And he understands what it means to get bail for free without a slap from the police. So he has gotten wide experience. And I like his background. But the person of Umoino is not known to Akwa Ibom people. Umoino is a stranger. We don't know him. Umoino might have more propensities to pursue governance with force in a manner that the objectives will be realized before time. He might also have the propensity to fail. So we should be able to look at him and say, what agenda are we setting for Umoino? We cannot leave Umoino to go out on his own alone. Umoino, he won by just about 10% of the total voters in Akwa Ibom. By about 1%. I mean 10% or thereabout. Which means people may see him as governor of 10% of the people. And I don't want us to see him like that. I want him, if he eventually becomes, if he's eventually sworn in as governor of this state, we should be able to hold Umoino, work with him, encourage him. His nuances, his temperament is another thing. His temperament will affect government.
I think another major concern.
But I'm happy that he has a good wife who calls him Golden Boy.
Oh wow, he's actually golden. I think it's more like a mantra now on the streets of Akwa Ibom.
Yeah, he's even called it the golden era for Akwa Ibom.
For Akwa Ibom State. But there's another snag, and this is one aspect that I think a lot of people have made or raised concerns in terms of the fact that if he becomes the governor, would he be able to appropriate, funds, appropriately? There's this snag about him being a very frugal person.
Yes, frugality is a much kinder and nicer word to use. Every businessman is frugal. That was why I said that Udom Emmanuel was not a businessman. He was an employee of a large company, and he was saddled with the responsibility of working with resources and both human and material resources on the basis of the principle of the company. So he didn't have much of a say in terms of deciding things on his own. I might be wrong. I still stand to be corrected. But Mr. I don't want to call him pastor. I will be sentimental calling him pastor. Mr. Moino, Mobasieno, is an individual. We've heard stories, yes, that he collects 10% of tithe from his staff members, and he makes things difficult for his staff. But Akwa Ibom is not his company. That's what I'm saying, that all stakeholders must approach Umoino now. Sell ideas to him. The ideas he may not have. The happy hour idea could be modified to something more acceptable. Because as it is right now, drinking beer and the state subsidizing 75% is not tenable and it won't work. He is frugal because he's a businessman. All those negative information we got may have been as a result of persons trying to run him down. I can't rule that out. may have been as a result of direct experiences some persons have with him at the individual level. But we're saying he is going to be handling the state. How will he operate in the state?
Okay, so
you don't think a
because
lot of his
time,
personality will press him, you know, he exerts governance? If this is who you are at business level,
exactly,
we expect to a very large extent that we are going to see these things play out in your governance
replicated,
style.
you know, in terms of his governance style.
I've said, Omoeno, you're a businessman, but you must not run Akwa Ibom as a private estate. What's the purpose of government? Chapter 12 of the Constitution. Welfare and security of the people. Do you have capacity to give us welfare? Do you have capacity to give us security? That's why governance and government is too serious a business to be left in the hands of only Pastor Moino. Some people may not have been instrumental or contributed to Pastor Moino becoming governor of the state, but they have brilliant ideas. I look at someone like architect Ezekiel Nyaito. Brilliant ideas. I said something the other day that no political party in this country has a manifesto. None of them. They are jamborees. Have you watched most of their campaigns? They just go sing, dance, insult some persons and go home. But governance is beyond that. We are done with politics now. We should go into government.
But Barrister Thomas, let me.
Have I not answered your question?
If you haven't landed, please do.
We must team up with him. All the parties on May 29, I want to see the parties come out with their ideas. I want to see Pastor Moino run a government of national unity, a broad-based government. Call all the parties and say, gentlemen, thank you for volunteering to contest for the seat of governor of Akwa Ibom State. Thank you for coming out, for selling brilliant ideas to the people. Now, I need you, Party A, give me 3 commissioners. Party B, give me 3. Select your best and send to us. It is our government. It's not a winner's, don't make it a winner's take it all. Consult women, send people. Civil society, send people. Youth, send people. Then you agglomerate, bring them together and select the best for whatever position. You notice that we'll have peace, there will be no sabotage. But if you want to say it's winners take it, the winner takes it all, you have sabotage in government. From outside, they will sabotage your policy, sabotage infrastructure, sabotage virtually everything. So let Pastor Moino and his supporters, let his supporters not go out to celebrate victory by insulting other people. When you celebrate this victory, celebrate it knowing that you are of the Akwa Ibom stock. If you destroy Akwa Ibom, there are states, indigenes of neighboring states and elsewhere, even from the north, who will be very happy to take over Akwa Ibom. I tell you the truth, if it's thrown open, we'll have persons who are not Akwa Ibom indigenes who will take over the place because they are citizens of Nigeria.
Okay. I like the fact that you landed the way you landed, you know, governor of inclusivity, of governmental inclusivity. Let's come back to the drawing board and see people who have brilliant ideas from other parties come together to work for the collective good of Akwa Ibom State. But we want to say a very big thank you to you, Barrister Clifford Thomas. It's been wonderful having you on set with us this morning. If I want to go back to, you know, some of the things you said during our analysis on the elections, you said let's give Pastor Moino a chance, you know, an opportunity to serve Akwa Ibomites. But it's been a wonderful time with you on set. Barrister Clifford Thomas is the coordinator, Akwa Ibom State Human Rights Community here in Akwa Ibom State. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, I think this is wrap-up time.
Definitely wrap-up time, and it's been such a great conversation. It's great when you talk to, you know, people that have a lot of, I call it brain juice, and they expand your opinion about things. So that's a big thank you to Barrister Clifford here. Of course, it will help the other 90% of Akwa Ibomites who did not vote in Pastor Moino to have, he has framed the expectation for the state, and I think it's a really good way for us to land this morning. Thank you for being a part of Rise and Shine this morning. Of course, it's been great, right? Thank you to everyone who called on the show. We absolutely appreciate it. My name is Uyai Anyeka. Let's do this again tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again tomorrow when we come back here again. But thank you to the production crew. You guys are fantastic. I will hand you over now to Sports Central with Isaac and Blyden Ukem for Sports Update. My name is Janice Cobham. See you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.